Hello, friends. Tonight we are going to talk about ammo. This is going to have more of a podcast structure because I started filming at my desk and I realized there's just nothing for you guys to look at. This is even more boring visually than what I usually do, which is already pretty fucking boring. So instead, I'm just going to show you pictures of what we're talking about because that makes the most sense here. So we're going to be talking about ammo kind of in a general sense. The folks on the TGP Discord asked me to discuss how I choose ammo and why. So I'm going to go over everything from Rimfire to shotgun stuff to 5.56, weird Russian stuff, the whole damn thing. Speaking of Discord, if you would like to join us over on Discord, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. Your generous support pays for ammo for the channel. All of the money is reinvested in TGP. Y'all keep the channel going, and I'm incredibly grateful. Also, folks asked for shirts, so I created the world's worst t-shirt. It's just awful, and you can find it on Teespring. Link in the description. So, ammo. Folks get really obsessive about it, and a lot of folks are very, very knowledgeable about ammo. If you've ever watched the channel, you know that knowledgeable is not a word that would be used to describe anything here. Most of my choices are made for pragmatic reasons. Also, I'm not telling you that you should buy any of this. I'm not telling you that any of this is good. I'm not telling you that my approach to choosing ammo is right. This is just a look at my ammo and how I choose it. That's what I was asked to do. Okay, now that we've got the long-winded list of disclaimers and caveats out of the way, let's start with those smallest of bullets, rimfire. I really only shoot one rimfire caliber these days, 22 LR. I go through periods where I shoot mostly rimfire because it's one of my favorite things to do. I love rimfire stuff. As a result, I keep a lot of it stockpiled. Also, rimfire stuff sounds like some kind of, just terrible sex act, doesn't it? So as a result, I keep a lot of 22 LR stockpiled. So I keep two kinds of 22 on hand, a very large quantity of bulk stuff and a small quantity of hotter stuff that would work slightly better should I need to use a 22 defensively. That's going to be controversial, I know, but there are times when a very small 22, perhaps a pocket pistol, might make sense for you or someone you know. And if you absolutely hate that idea, that's okay too. But all the same, I always choose the same stuff. For, quote, defensive use, I would choose either CCI mini mags or stingers, whichever is available at the time. I've been told by some folks who know a lot more about this sort of thing than I do that mini mags maybe perform better defensively and stingers are maybe better for hunting small game, but I don't know much about that. I just know that both of those are very hot and have always fed reliably for me, and they're very consistent. So whatever's available, that's what I get. Have I done extensive analysis on the ballistics of these loadings to see if they offer superior expansion and penetration? No, I don't do that. I just know this stuff is very hot, so I hope that it hits harder than the range ammo, and then I ask folks who are more familiar with that sort of thing, and that's what they recommended. For bulk ammo, these days, I always buy the same stuff almost exclusively, and that's Federal Auto Match in these bulk packs of 325. I buy a ton of that, and it's awesome. That stuff is great, and that was one of the keys to me having such a good stockpile is because those packs, stores would buy too many of them, and then they would sell them for, I think I was paying $12 for 325 towards the end, which is not the cheapest in the world, but this is really good ammo. This works in every gun that I've put it in. You can't say that for a lot of the less expensive 22. So I felt like this was a great deal and a great way to stockpile. And it also means that if you're online shopping, you only have to search for one brand, and you always know that's going to work. That's one of the dangers of buying 22 in bulk. You could get a bad lot of it, and then you've bought thousands of rounds of it of some brand that you're unfamiliar with, some loading that you're unfamiliar with. I like picking something that I know works, that might not be the cheapest, but I can just search for that one thing only, and know that I'm going to get something good. So I think that the auto match is a great way to get a really consistent 22 stockpile. Yeah, definitely keeping a stockpile of 22 on hand is great. And these 325 round boxes, one of these packs is about a range day for me. You can burn through the 22 pretty quick. Also, I shoot a range of 22, some revolvers, some autos, and this works in everything with relatively few duds. There's usually one in every box. So 1 per 325, occasionally 2, though the last box that I shot had 0 duds. So that was nice. Common pistol ammo. So regardless of caliber, I buy the same stuff for the same reason. Not always the same brand, but it's always generally the same loading from one of a few different manufacturers. I'm looking for performance that mimics defensive loads as much as possible at the lowest price. That first part is very important to me. We all kind of value different aspects of training, and I personally focus on speed as much as possible. I don't do competition or anything, but it's just fun. I like going fast. It's enjoyable, so that's what I focus on. I know a lot of folks who intentionally buy weak, weenie domestic ammo or steel-cased Russian stuff because they feel that it's more fun to shoot at the range. With some exceptions, that stuff is weaker than a lot of what comes out of Europe. If you shoot that weak stuff all day, your performance with plus P HSTs or whatever is going to suffer. At least mine does. Maybe this is mostly a me problem. I don't know, but I certainly see my friends struggle with it too, whether they would admit it or not. So I seek out the hottest ammo that I can find, and it's usually European. I especially like Geco, GECO. Great ammo. I also like Fiocchi and PPU a lot. Though PPU tends, speaking in generalizations, to be just a little bit less hot than the other two. Geco is my favorite. Now, if you're one of the 5 or 6 people who watch this channel regularly, you know that I love 32 ACP. It's one of my favorite calibers. Just love it. In this case, I also use the European ball ammo as defensive ammo. That caliber needs all the help that it can get in the penetration department. And who doesn't need some help there? Am I right? Terrible. So I tend to buy Geco or Fiocchi ball for everything. With 9mm, I'm looking for NATO spec stuff. It's still slightly weaker than plus P defensive ammo, but the disparity in power isn't nearly as severe as if you were to buy something like Remington green and white box or Wolf. Not that there's anything wrong with buying that stuff, but it is noticeably weaker. These days, though, if that's all you can get for practice, then hell, you got to go for it. But luckily, I had a stockpile of Geco and Fiocchi and some other things before the pandemic started. So this difference in recoil is the same reason we don't train with 22 to learn to control recoil. You can only learn so much without receiving the jolt that you will experience with the ammo that you're going to use in a defensive situation. So again, as I said in the beginning of the video, I'm not advocating that you do any of this or that you should think this way. I'm not saying that any of this is right. I'm just telling you what I do. So you are witnessing the thought process of a moron. But I prefer to have that extra jolt from my practice ammo to make it feel a bit more like what I'm going to experience if I have to use defensive ammo. 45 ACP is another caliber that tends to have weak domestic and Russian loadings, though the gap doesn't seem to be as wide here. So I keep domestic stuff around because I have that awful Ruger 1911, the second one that I've had after a factory replacement. And it'll shit the bed if you look at it wrong. So it seems to work slightly better with Winchester than it does with European stuff. So that's what it eats. My other 45s, because they aren't worthless turds devoid of use, they happily eat the European ammo without a second thought. By the way, I'm not saying that all Ruger 1911s suck. I'm just saying that I've had really bad luck with just 1911s in general. So if you have a Ruger 1911, I'm not shitting all over your purchase. You don't need to get super defensive about it. It'll be all right. You're fine. I promise. Lastly, we come to 10mm. The same thing applies here. I want the hottest range ammo that I can possibly afford. More than any of these other calibers, this matters to me here with 10mm. When I shoot the weenie ammo, the loadings that are closer to 40, and then I switch to defensive loadings, it might as well be a different gun in a different caliber. With the defensive loads, the skills are very different. I find that I sort of lean more on the skills that I learned shooting Magnum revolver than the ones that I learned in automatic pistol classes. So ideally, I want ammo that is around 600 foot-pounds, something like that. In my Glock 40 MOS video, some folks felt that I was shooting weak ammo in order to shoot it faster for the video. I wasn't. That stuff is just under 600 foot-pounds out of that barrel length. You can see the shock of the recoil running up my arms and into my back. I train with that so that I might be vaguely worth a shit shooting the defensive rounds. So with 10 millimeter, for me, I feel that this is almost a necessary part of training. Revolver ammo. With revolvers, my thinking changes somewhat. I really only shoot revolvers for fun, and I think I might find them more fun than autos. But because revolvers are just for fun, I don't keep the same stockpile on hand. I just a few hundred rounds for each caliber usually, and that really came back to bite me in the ass during the shortage. I've mostly shot rimfire revolver for the last year. So here I've always thought that I really just needed to get what was cheap and available. Because again, it's just for fun. If my local store has a lot of 38 special, then the gun eats 38 special. If 357 is more common, that's what we go with. I really don't care. 38 special is fun because recoil is a joke out of a big 357 and you can shoot it super fast. 357 is fun because it's loud and whacks the steel target super hard. Either way, you kind of win. You're having fun no matter what. 44 Magnum is my favorite caliber to shoot out of a handgun ever. It's obnoxiously loud. It makes a big fireball. It hits the target hard. The rounds are huge, but it's still controllable. You can shoot a lot of it without experiencing pain, as long as you have a large gun like my Red Hawk. And it's pretty easy to shoot fast for a big Magnum caliber. It's the smallest of the big Magnums, and I think it's the perfect intersection of ridiculousness, fun, and power. But while I'd like to only shoot the hottest 44, it's one of the most expensive calibers that I shoot. So I buy whatever I can afford and find. There's this 300 grain PPU load that is really obnoxiously hot. It creates this sort of concussion wave when it goes off. That one makes the folks around me kind of grimace at the range. I love that shit. It's great. But that's not always available. Right now, 44 is available nowhere, so whatever is around, that's what I shoot. Russian ammo. I only shoot 2 Russian calibers, 7.62 by 39 and 9 by 18 Makarov. The Makarov is one of my favorite handguns ever. I go through a shitload of that stuff in a year. The Russian ammo ban is going to hit me hard. I'm very upset about it. That's going to suck. The Makarov will eat anything, and I mean anything. I buy whatever I can get my hands on. The shittier, the better. Right now, my 2 Makarovs are eating a lot of brown bear. That fucking bear. What is wrong with that bear? Have you ever looked at it closely? What the fuck? That bear is not right. For 7.62 by 39, I do have one loading that I prefer, the Wolf Military Classic lacquered load. It's very consistent and is remarkably accurate out of my AK for Russian ammo. The quality is very good too. I'm sad to see it go. That shit's great. I also bought a case of Tula because it was there and Russian ammo was going bye-bye and the price was right at the time. With AK ammo, I'm not really concerned with accuracy. It was just kind of a happy accident. Since the gun likes this ammo and is so consistent, it's the winner. Also, I am not an expert in AK ammo, and I am not saying that this is the best AK ammo and you should run out and buy it. I am including this additional caveat because I have discovered over the last year a hilarious fact. The AK people, y'all are the most fragile group in the gun community. It's really funny. Y'all will have a straight up meltdown if you feel like somebody has insulted your preferred platform. And it seems to be tied in with some kind of weird like masculinity thing where y'all are like, yeah, the AK might be slower, but you got to be a man to manhandle the AK. Like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? Is there some kind of like IQ drop off when you purchase an AK? Do you automatically like lose 50 IQ points the second you walk out of the store with it? God, for fuck's sake. Shotgun ammo. In the world of shotgun, buckshot and slugs, they feel very different from the usual practice ammo, which is birdshot. The recoil impulses are often radically different. So I choose ammo that feels the closest to buckshot and slugs. It's based entirely on feel. That's really all that matters. So you see a pattern. I'm looking for a birdshot that has the most recoil. I'd like for it to be cheap enough that I can buy bulk packs, but as long as it's cheap enough within reason, I'm not going for the absolute bottom shelf stuff. And it also needs to have a relatively stout recoil impulse for birdshot. And I bought a ton of this Aguila stuff at the start of the pandemic, and it beats the shit out of a lot of the other stuff that I've tried. But what do I like for defensive ammo? Well, Federal slugs and Federal flight control buckshot, definitely my favorite. And I don't have some kind of crazy system where I alternate buckshot and slugs in the gun, or have buckshot first and then slugs, or any of that shit. If you do that, I'm not criticizing your methodology. I'm not smart enough to keep track of something like that. That's why I don't do it. So for me, sometimes slugs make sense and sometimes buckshot makes sense. But for me, most of the time, buckshot would be my first choice. Growing up in the South, shooting shotguns all the time, you come to view slugs as something kind of different. We would try to shoot slugs at the longest distances that we possibly could. And if you do that all summer for a couple of years, you start to realize that slugs have a much longer range than you would imagine. So I view them as almost a supplementary ammo type. If I was using a defensive shotgun at a range that required slugs to get a hit, I would question why I was shooting at something so far away. It might make more sense to just leave that situation, but you never know. So I have them. I have a lot of Federal slugs, actually, but I zero my gun for the flight control buckshot. Out of my Beretta 1301, these flight control wads give very, very good accuracy and predictability, which might be just as important with the defensive shotgun. I love the flight control wads. Rifle ammo. Let's do 308 first. I shoot two kinds of 308. One is always the same, and the other changes often. The latter feeds the Aero M5 upper that they were kind enough to send me. However, it'll be a while before that appears on the channel in any substantial way because 308 and 7.62 NATO are so damn hard to find right now at reasonable prices. It'll happen, but it's going to take time. Yeah, just like everything else on this stupid channel. And it sucks because I love the gun. It's one of the projects that I'm most excited about. They even sent me a nickel bore on BCG. This arrived when the pandemic hit, and it made me very sad. It wasn't their fault at all. Obviously, just ammo dried up. But I'm incredibly grateful to them for sending that out, and it's going to be really cool to get that thing running. So when I shoot the M5, whatever is around, usually it's lighter stuff because that's just what's available, but whatever the hell there is, that's what it eats. But the other kind of 308 that I keep on hand is Federal Gold Medal Match, the 175 grain Sierra Match Kings. That's all I put through my Tika, which I use as a long range rifle. It's funny. I've got one of the ones for hunting that's with the wooden stock, but it's so accurate. It does great as a long range rifle. But I've had amazing luck with the Federal Gold Medal Match. It's really, really good. My groups are good for someone of my meager skill, and the ammo is usually available somewhere if you have the money for it. I don't hand load, so I need something that gives me consistently good results. This is great ammo, and it does exactly what it says it's going to do for you. Last of all, 5.56. I buy cases and cases of it, always exactly the same load. The Federal 55 grain M193. Why? Do I think that it's the best 5.56 ammo on the market? No, I don't. But all of my mini 5.56 guns like it. That's the caliber that I shoot the most. I don't have to waste time fucking around with my Zero, and it would do just fine in a defensive situation. I used to keep around some 77 grain Black Hills OTM for defense and accuracy testing. Obviously, it performed much better in nearly every way, but it was prohibitively expensive, and I was shooting 55 grain and 62 grain ammo for practice. I had to fuck with my Zeros constantly, and it was very annoying. If I was rich, I'd just buy the Black Hills and never worry about it, but I can't afford to do that. So I realized I needed to standardize on one of my practice loadings for many different logistical reasons. I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just saying that that's what made the most sense for me. The 55 grain ammo is most readily available, and my guns seem to like it a bit more than the 62 grain Federal 5.56. The M193 is generally a bit more accurate in my guns, and in a defensive situation, it's definitely going to do the job. 5.56 is a very potent round in any loading. So that's the decision I made to completely standardize on only Federal M193 and nothing else. When I can spring for it, if I'm accuracy testing a new gun for the channel, I will buy some 77 grain OTM to run through it. And then after giving it a little test, we're going back to the 55 grain ammo, and then I tell y'all what the results were. I hate zeroing guns, and my 5.56 range time is much more fun using this method, and enjoyment is what I tend to value most. I hated doing the 77 grain tests. I'd keep the gun with that zero for a month and then have to switch back, especially if you're shooting the gun past, 300 yards or something like that. It really starts to matter. So yeah, it makes my life a lot easier. Final thoughts. Oh, did I forget something? I feel like I forgot something. I probably did. Oh well, this video is already far too long and tedious as it is. This is without a doubt the most boring video that I've ever made. So once more, I'm not saying that you should do any of this. How many times have I said that at this point? I'm not saying these ideas are good ideas. When you consider that I'm the one who had these ideas, they are almost certainly not good ideas. I made this video because folks asked for it. It is not a how-to guide or a suggested methodology. You can see that I mostly chose things for convenience. I tend to buy what I can get a lot of at a decent price that provides a recoil impulse that gives me adequate training. Shooting wimpy loads all day just doesn't really help me as much as shooting something that feels like a defensive load. But I'm also not afraid to buy something just because it's available and I don't have to adjust my zero. So sometimes it's that simple. In every video, I like to offer some sort of gun culture criticism. And as I filmed this, I wondered what the hell I'd say this time. And I wondered what the real point of this video is. I think ultimately, I want to show that you don't have to follow any sort of dogmatic approach to ammo purchasing. The gun community has this terrible tendency to kind of blindly follow trends. For instance, right now, we think the MRO is bad. It's terrible. It's the worst optic on the market. And if you use one, you're a big stupid. Have you tested the MRO for yourself, though? How do you know it's bad? Because the internet man told you? I have 2 MROs. I've actually tested the damn thing. It's one of the best micro optics. Does it have problems? Oh, of course it does. But it's not the worst device ever in human history. Y'all just repeat whatever shit you hear. And you shouldn't do that. You should develop your own reason for doing the things that you do. You should look at what other people are doing and factor in those things. Sometimes you'll look at somebody else and you'll go, God, that was a really good idea. That was an amazing idea. And then you incorporate that into what you're doing. But make sure that you're doing what makes sense for you and not just watching a video and going, oh, we believe the MRO is bad now, so MRO bad. I think I'm going to make a whole video about that one specific thing because it's so interesting. Make sure you're doing what's right for you, not what's right for somebody else. So now you know the dumb shit that I do when I'm buying ammo. You at least know what not to do. And if some of this is useful to you, well, you should probably get your head examined. But seriously, yeah. You do what you need to do to meet your own needs, no one else's. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you soon. Good night.